561-319-5533. Or you can email him, tom@trentovision.tv. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to Trentovision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Trentovision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom@trentovision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and trentovision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
Hello, hello, hello. We are here at trentovision.tv, and I am not Tom Trento. We are here with myself, and we are here with CJ. Dashing in at the last second. And we have Silent Mike over here. That's pretty good, Mike.
That was really silent, Mike. Okay, Tom is never going to let us play in the studio without him again.
Now, we
are Trentovision on 1470 AM.
WNN.
WNN.
You can call in at
888-565.
Mike, that's your cue.
Oh, 1470.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Woo, thanks for playing.
888-565-1470 if you want to talk to myself, J. Mark Campbell, CJ, or Silent Mike. Well, he won't say anything, actually, if you try to call him.
We still have on hold, we have our guest, Claire Lopez, from the Center for Security Policy, and our question of the day.
Well, before we get there, we need to do a couple of things. We have a couple of sponsors that we need to highlight.
Okay, we're gonna do that in 1 second, because I just want to let everybody know who might be calling in what the question is.
Okay.
That we're looking for the answer for.
Okay.
And the question is, can you name a single achievement that Hillary Clinton made as Secretary of State?
In her last 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Simple.
That's a very simple question.
Very simple question.
A very simple question.
But inside the studio today, it is 77 degrees. What's the temperature outside the studio today, CJ?
Okay. Oops. Okay, how's the traffic?
Traffic, Mike. What is the traffic since CJ is slacking on her job?
5 o'clock traffic.
Is there some?
It doesn't look so bad outside right now.
So it's almost like 4 o'clock traffic. It's not quite 5 o'clock traffic. So it's 5 o'clock traffic masking is 4 o'clock traffic.
That's exactly right.
Is that what it is? Okay.
And it's 72 degrees.
And it's 72 degrees. Well, that's great.
Wow.
And Mike, we have a vulture report. And what is the vulture situation here in Boca Raton?
You know what? Like, outside the window, it's not so bad. Maybe a mile that way, there's, what is a flock of them?
A flock of them?
Flock,
a flock of vultures a mile away.
Are vultures a flock?
I don't know.
Okay,
are they
another
gaggle?
question.
Another gaggle. Well,
the mysteries of life are going to be solved today on Trentovision.
Our in-depth vulture report has been sponsored by
Peter Feynman,
attorney at law.
And Peter is a local business attorney in Palm Beach County.
That's right. Who keeps his eye on vultures all over the place.
That's right. And he can spot those vultures like a mile away, man.
Zap.
Yeah,
it's
he
like,
was sitting in that seat where you were a couple of weeks ago, and he's looking out the window, and he's like, look at vultures. Man, look at all those vultures.
That's what started the vulture report was Peter Feynman saying, Peter, you're an attorney. Right. You've got the eye for vultures. He really does.
That's right. So go to feynmanlaw.com.
And Peter Feynman is what,
Peter
CJ?
Feynman is a business attorney, but if you have other legal questions, he can refer you to somebody good and trustworthy.
And he's in a perfect position right now.
He's in a perfect position as the national committeeman representing Florida to the Republican Party, and he is at the RNC winter meeting right now in North Carolina.
Good.
And actually, he's sending back some pretty interesting reports. So I'm going to.
We should call him for a vulture report. Is what
yeah, he's in a really good position to tell us where the vultures are. But we're going to have him on next week.
Right.
to talk about what this big meeting was.
And a couple other things. We have the TeaPartyCommunity.com is starting to take off just by itself.
Just by itself.
Yeah,
we didn't even have the launch yet.
We haven't done the launch yet, and it's taking off. We got a big hit from Fox News the other day as far as on the TeaPartyCommunity.com, and it's starting to take off. It was only supposed to have like a couple thousand members, just as a beta test, and it's taken off. It's over 35,000 members right now.
So TeaPartyCommunity.com.
Right.
But there's also an online newspaper.
Yeah, Tea Party Tribune.
Tea Party Tribune.
And this thing is actually going to be, the launch of that's going to be February 2nd on a Saturday. On a
Saturday evening.
On a Saturday evening, 5 to 7. And we will have a fascinating show in the Tea Party community to actually try to get people together and like minds. And it is the anti-Facebook is how the Fox News called it.
So basically, it's just for thinking people, and I mean, you don't have to be a Tea Party member or anything to participate in this. This is just if you're looking up. Put it this way: if you're looking up Benghazi, if you're listening to Hillary Clinton's testimony today, and you're saying to yourself, you know what? This doesn't pass the smell test.
And you try to post that on Facebook.
And you go try to post that on Facebook.
And they'll send you a warning. Oh, I'm sorry, your content has been removed because of.
Well, there's a place for you to go to connect with people who share your suspicions about what's happening in the world.
And you will not get.
You will not get censored.
And it's a non-liberal friendly site.
Yeah.
I mean, they unabashedly say. We don't want. This is not.
We would prefer, however, I would like to say that we would prefer that you don't swear in your postings because we would be able. We would like to be able to read your postings or forward them to other people or include them on our own pages, and we're not going to do that if you swear.
And if you have if you have an iPhone, download the iHeart app, and it's very easy to do. Search for your iHeart app and download the iHeart app and do a search for WNN Whiskey November November.
Show off. Show off your military stuff.
Yeah, you kind of want Wisconsin Nancy or something. No, it's not. It's Whiskey November November.
I said Nancy on purpose.
No, I know. Just to tweak us.
Just to tweak you guys.
Claire would probably jump through the screen.
Claire's looking at us right now on the screen and saying, what the hell are those kids playing at in the studio
Yeah, Claire,
today?
you were a former Marine, were you not?
Well, I almost was. I went to officer candidate school in Quantico, Virginia after grad school while other resumes were wending their way through various systems, and then finished OCS. But the letter that I was waiting for arrived while I was there, and so I left the Marines the night before graduation. I went in and withdrew, and went on to a different career.
And to one of those alphabet organizations, I assume, right?
There we go.
There you go.
So, Claire, we were talking about, we posed a challenging question to you, is to name a specific event that Hillary Clinton could actually say, boy, that's a success story right there.
Yeah, well, you only gave me a couple minutes. But,
you had a good 10 minutes.
You had a good 10 minutes.
It depends on what you want to call an accomplishment. Now, if you want to say, did she achieve the rise to power of the Muslim Brotherhood across the Middle East, North African region, then the answer is yeah, she sure did. She helped a lot. Along with the rest of the administration.
Okay.
Did she achieve, anything that helped the people of the MENA region, MENA, Middle East, North African region, to approach any closer to genuine democracy, liberal, pluralist, tolerant, civil society? Not so much.
Not so much. Well, she did. I got one.
You got one.
I got one. She did go down and stop the Gaza and Israel war when she brought in Morsi. Did she not?
Well, she helped broker that, I guess, with the assistance of Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood president, of course, who helped his buddies in Hamas, which are, of course, the Gaza or the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. He did a pretty good job, talking to his buds over there. Telling them, keep your powder dry for the moment. The time will come.
Wink, wink.
Maybe after the tanks and the planes arrive.
Yeah.
Not so much, huh?
All right. Well, we do have a couple of callers on the line. Maybe one of them has a suggestion.
Yeah.
First, we have Yolanda.
Hey,
Yolanda on the line.
Hi, I'm fine. Yourself?
Hi,
Doing
we're
good.
We're good. Whoops.
I heard your question. To be quite honest with you, I share your guest's sentiment. If it's the fact that she facilitated or helped to accelerate the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood in our government, that she did. I don't know of any major accomplishment that we can say that she did that would help our country really any in a good way. I tend to agree with Claire, but I had a question to ask Claire.
Okay.
With respect to what took place in Benghazi. Claire, at what point do you think Christopher Stevens realized that he and the administration had made a great had misjudged their new compatriots? In other words, those people that they were advocating be let out of jail under Muammar Gaddafi. When do you think they started to realize that, or that he realized maybe that this was a big mistake?
So when was the Homer Simpson Doe moment? Yeah.
It doesn't seem from anything we know so far that realization came to him any time before he looked at those, television camera monitors and saw 150 jihadis bursting through the front gates with RPGs and AK-47s.
Oops, I erred in judgment.
So, dope.
Yeah.
The only thing I've heard that he sent communiques back, letting the administration know that the situation was grave and that they needed more security. Was there in that alone? I'm thinking perhaps there was a certain point that he realized that the overthrow wasn't a good idea for that matter.
But, you're right. You're right. He did send back multiple requests for additional security. Nobody knew about those Al-Qaeda militias and the jihadis who led them better than Christopher Stevens. He knew personally who these people were. He went to the tea houses with them. He had dinner in their homes with them. He knew them. So as he's asking for additional security, maybe it was beginning to dawn on him that they were really snakes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
I was going to add. Well, you basically you answered the question. I was going to ask you another question, but I don't know. I better not. I think I'll reserve that for myself. But thanks for your input.
Okay, Yolanda. Well, think about it and call back tomorrow if you decide to follow up.
Nah, I got a loaded question, so I don't want to put Claire on the spot.
Okay.
All right.
Well, go ahead. What's your loaded question? Let's make it interesting.
Curious now.
Now you get curious.
Yeah.
Well, what's your loaded question?
Given the fact that we have a leader of the free world who has been educated in the Islamic tradition, who speaks fluent Arabic, and this doesn't make him, more or less of an enemy, but who is well versed in the Quran, well versed in the Sirahs, well versed in Muhammad, as so far as to say that those who criticize the Prophet Muhammad, the future does not belong to them. What is the chance that he is not himself an agent and an enemy jihadist himself?
Well, you raise some very good and challenging questions. Yes, our president was born and raised a Muslim. Any child that is born of a Muslim father is, by Islamic law, a Muslim for life. It is a capital offense to apostatize from Islam, although the scholars differ a little bit on the age at which you fall away, and if our president left Islam before the age of puberty, 10 or 11 or so, when he went back to live with his grandparents in Hawaii, then the question is perhaps maybe he's not officially an apostate, but we have no record of his conversion experience, nothing that he's ever spoken about to talk about what made him convert, what prompted him to convert, no baptismal records. So, I mean, the question is out there. What does this man really believe? Yes, he has said he's a Christian. Multiple times he said he's a Christian, but we know that under Islamic law, it is not only permitted, but it's obligatory for Muslims to lie on certain occasions, in certain circumstances. So I think all of this is sort of academic questioning, but what really matters is what has he done? What are his actions? Where have they led the United States in our foreign policy? And where they have led is to the rise to power of the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda around the world.
Yeah.
That is the net result that we see. Was it deliberate? Was it not deliberate? Was it witting? Was it unwitting? We don't know. But that is the outcome.
Well, that's how he kicked off his first term. His whole worldwide apology tour started in Cairo. And when he went to Cairo in January of 2000, what was it, January?
June 2009.
June 2008.
Thank you, June 2009. Okay. He said to the world, I am with you. I'm one of you.
No, he said to the Muslim world, not the world.
No, I mean, he said to the world, because his audience was Muslim in Egypt, I am with you. He's saying to the Muslim audience, and that's how the world interpreted it.
No,
Right.
I mean, he very specifically spoke to Muslims, and
That's what
I would
saying,
argue
yes.
that speech given at Al-Azhar University, the seat, the premier seat of Sunni Islamic learning for 1,000 years, I would argue that that speech was a declaration of war against his host, then President Hosni Mubarak of Egypt, because he, the president, specifically invited members of the then outlawed Muslim Brotherhood to sit in the front row of the audience for that speech, which meant that his host could not attend.
That's right.
And he made it very clear that he was putting the full power and force and approval and support of the United States government behind the Muslim Brotherhood. That was the beginning of the Islamic uprisings, which didn't break out actually for another year or so, but that was the green light for them.
That was the go-ahead signal.
That was the signal that the United States of America would stand with the Brotherhood, not with the forces of genuine democracy and freedom.
And Yolanda, you have one other comment to make, or what? Yeah.
No, but she really. I always thought that moment was a declaration, and she confirmed what I thought. Thanks, Claire. You really shed some light on that.
All right, thank you, Yolanda.
Yep, thank you.
Next we have Ruth on the line.
Ruth.
Hey, hi, Mark. How are you? Hi, Claire.
Is this the lipstick pundit, Ruth?
Is this the lipstick pundit?
Yes, it is.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Claire, I'm enjoying all of your particular points. It's just fascinating. I've got a real quick question. I read today in the Global Muslim Brotherhood report, and it revealed that the Brotherhood and Iran have had a very good relationship for quite some time. And we were led to believe that the Sunnis and Shias are enemies. Can you clarify this?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Both the Khomeinists, that is the Iranian regime that took power in the revolution in 1979 and continues in power to this day, and the Muslim Brotherhood have always been pan-Islamic. In other words, they prioritize the unity of all Muslims, Sunni and Shiite together, against the non-Muslim world, the kuffar, the infidels, over sectarian strife. And they try very hard to minimize sectarian strife. And what happened back in the early 1990s, I think we alluded to this a bit ago, the Muslim Brotherhood government of Sudan under Omar al-Bashir, who is still the president and wanted on war crimes of Sudan, invited all the jihadis of the world, basically, the PLO and the PFLP and everybody. Ayman al-Zawahiri and Osama bin Laden were then in exile in Sudan, in safe haven there, so they were there. Al-Qaeda had not yet really coalesced, but they were there. And invited as well was the top government leadership of Iran. Also, Hezbollah invited. So you had there the Shiite-Sunni world of jihad in Khartoum for the Jihad Jamborees. They met
the
annually after that. On a yearly basis. They would come back, but the alliance was formed. That's when the alliance between Iran, the formal alliance between Iran and what would become Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah, was actually formed. And very important at that first meeting, this is late 1990, early 1991, Osama bin Laden had seen what Hezbollah had done in Beirut against our Marine barracks, the French embassy, and the American embassy, and so forth. And he wanted the explosives expertise that Hezbollah had demonstrated for his guys. So Osama bin Laden asked Iran, and of course we had the Iranian president, Ali Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani was there. You had the Iranian
the moderate
Intel chief, Ali
Rafsanjani,
Falahian.
right?
You had the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps chief, Mohsen Rezai. So bin Laden asked these guys, he said, can you kind of second assign somebody from Hezbollah to teach my boys how to do explosives like that, truck bombs, suicide bombings, bringing down big buildings. And Iran says, yeah, sure. And they assigned Imad Mughniya. Remember that name, Imad Mughniya. Top terror chieftain of Hezbollah for decades. He then taught the Al-Qaeda guys how to do explosives. And he trained them in Sudan, in Lebanon, in the Bekaa Valley, and other places, also Iran. And that is where Al-Qaeda learned explosives. And the first result was Khobar Towers in 1996. After that, East Africa Embassy bombings of 1998, USS Cole bombing, 2000. All of those were the result, as was 9/11, the attacks of 9/11, the result of those Hezbollah terror experts, explosives experts, teaching Al-Qaeda how to do those kind of bombings.
Hey, Claire, I got a question for you. You got any more questions, Ruth? Or
well, then, do you think that the United States will ever put any pressure on Iran if with the Muslim Brotherhood and Iran have this symbiotic relationship?
Not with this administration.
No, not even slightly. And what we're seeing, unfortunately, is the new regime of Mohammed Morsi in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood regime, reaching out to Iran. Iran has been trying to cozy up to that new regime ever since it took power in early 2011. In the beginning, the Brotherhood sort of kept them at arm's distance until they kind of consolidated things. Now they've consolidated, and they're accepting the overtures from Iran. And you see reports about visits. You had a report of the Quds Force commander, Qasem Soleimani, visiting and talking with the Muslim Brotherhood in Iran just a few weeks ago. There is discussion that there has been an invitation for the leadership of Iran to come to Cairo for an OIC meeting.
Sure, it's a reciprocal. It's a reciprocal invitation from Morsi was in Tehran.
Let me add one more thing about this, which I think is very concerning, and that is that Iran explicitly, publicly has offered to share its nuclear technology with Egypt, which already, by the way, has a pretty advanced nuclear program, including a couple of reactors, nuclear reactors, thus far for research and for power production. But with
for
Iran becoming
uses.
involved, the question must be, as good friend Raymond Stock wrote in a September piece last fall in Gatestone, and Middle East Forum published it too. Muslim Brotherhood bomb Question mark?
Right.
That's
Right.
what we're looking at?
Well,
so this,
and
Shiite, Sunni, forget that stuff.
And even in
They
a
are
pe- and even in a peaceful purpose, let's say you did have a reactor and you were making it for generating power. You still have nuclear waste afterwards, which is radioactive. I mean, you just taking that material alone, regardless of weaponizing it to a modern day, fission type of bomb. You just take that material alone. I mean, that is deadly in and of itself if exploded anywhere. And why don't people wake up and see that? That's just beyond me.
Well, I mean, up until now, Egypt's nuclear program has been quite sort of under the radar. And they have managed it with the assistance of other countries like Argentina, like Russia, in a safe and secure manner. Thus far, the IAEA, has inspected. But the problem, of course, now is this new overture from Iran to the Muslim Brotherhood and the reciprocal, nature of the response. So, that's what we're watching with a lot of concern right now.
All right. Good questions, Ruth.
Yeah, good questions. Thank you, Ruth.
Thanks a lot, Claire. Okay,
You're
you guys,
welcome.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Claire, and this is just concerning the whole Benghazi gate, if you will. That, let's say I'm the prosecuting attorney, and I bring you on as the expert witness, okay? And I'm going to safe to claim that the reason that we were there in Benghazi was to funnel weapons to various sources throughout the Middle East. Could you effectively prosecute that case with factual evidence?
Well, there's plenty of evidence to the effect that Gaddafi's enormous stockpiles of weapons were looted during the revolt of 2011.
Okay.
We also know that some of those weapons have subsequently shown up in places like the Sinai Peninsula,
and I'm sorry,
and also have shown up in West Africa in these conflicts now, particularly Mali. We also know from open reporting, media reporting, that shiploads of those weapons, and we're talking about very dangerous weapons like RPGs and surface-to-air missiles that can actually bring down aircraft.
Okay.
The kinds of things you would bring to a protest.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, but a whole bunch of these weapons we know showed up on at least one ship that docked in early September in a port in Turkey, that place that Secretary Clinton never heard of before.
Turkey? Where's Turkey?
And those weapons came to light probably not, I don't want to say by accident, but they're probably not, that probably wasn't the only shipment of weapons, but they happened to come to light. Somebody revealed that.
Yeah.
And so that showed up in the newspapers. And then you add the evidence that the United States government not only issued a presidential intelligence finding for Libya, authorizing U.S. agencies to give all support to the Al-Qaeda rebels fighting to oust Gaddafi in the first instance. But then another presidential intelligence finding was issued for Syria, for the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda rebels fighting against the regime of Bashar al-Assad. That too all became public because somebody leaked it to the media. Okay? So now you have the U.S. government in full and complete support of the rebels in Syria. There also, I might add, was a special waiver granted by the Department of the Treasury, a department called OFAC, O-F-A-C, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to permit financial aid to flow to the Syrian Free Army, which, as we all know, is dominated by Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood. So the presidential finding, the OFAC waiver, and then a last piece of evidence is that we know that the Libyan government itself openly and publicly declared its support for the Syrian rebel opposition, Syrian Free Army, and that at least one of the key Al-Qaeda militia leaders, Abdul Hakim Belhaj, who led something called the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, went with an official Libyan post-Gaddafi delegation to Turkey and the border area between Turkey and Syria to meet with the Syrian Free Army. Again, all of this courtesy of the open media press, okay? So you put all of these pieces of evidence together. We know that the weapons were looted. We know that they were shipped. We know that they went to Turkey. We know that the United States government supported assistance going to the Syrian opposition. We know that people that Christopher Stevens worked with, like Abdel Hakim Belhaj, and now the new Libyan government, are assisting the Syrians. And we know that the ship has departed from Benghazi to go to Syria, and others also likely left Benghazi full of weapons, bound for Turkey and ultimately end users in Syria. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, and that's the point. Point being, that's the reason I think Rand Paul's question was a loaded question. When he asked her, he wanted to get her on record stating that where's Turkey? I know nothing about Turkey, none about these weapons. And I think...
Who ever heard of Turkey? But then, you know what, he pressed the question, which was good.
Right.
And he said, do you know about Libyan weapons going to Turkey? And she says, no, I don't know anything about that.
And that's open source.
The other agency, which she didn't name.
But the information that he was talking about was open source information, which she should know about as Secretary of State.
Of course.
I read it online myself.
Yeah, she couldn't admit that, of course, under oath or any other way, and so she lied.
Okay, so she lied, because these are all things the Secretary of State should have known.
Right.
No matter what.
Right.
Not just should have known.
Had a responsibility to know.
Exactly, Mark.
Exactly.
She was responsible for this.
She was responsible for it. That's what I'm trying to... that's what I'm getting at.
Is ultimately responsible for every U.S. official mission abroad.
And ignorance
even if that mission is being primarily run by some other agency, it is the State Department that is responsible for it.
Yeah, I want to follow up on...
I'll finish what Claire was just saying here. Just 1 second. Ignorance is not a defense as Secretary of State. If you are ignorant as Secretary of State, you can be held criminally responsible for your ignorance. That's the point.
It's a failure of professional responsibility at the very minimum.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the senators actually told her, if I had been the president while this was happening, and you were telling me that you were unaware of what was going on, I would have relieved you.
Well, that was Rand Paul who said that.
I would have relieved you. By the way, I just want to follow up a little bit on what Ruth just asked you. Ruth was asking you about the Sunni Shiites and Iran being involved with the Muslim Brotherhood. But who is Iran backing in Syria?
Well, I mean, this is interesting because in Syria, of course, Iran backs the Alawite regime
so how does that
Bashar al-Assad. Well, why? Because Syria provides Iran a frontline position on the southeastern littoral of the Mediterranean Sea and a frontline position, down via Lebanon and Hezbollah against Israel.
Right.
And it is desperate not to lose that foothold. It's going to lose it anyway, most likely. But it's been throwing everything it's got, IRGC, Quds Force, funding, diplomatic support to support Assad. And it's a little confusing, isn't it? Because at that one level, yes, they're supporting a regime that the Muslim Brotherhood is fighting to oust, Assad's regime. But on the broader scale of things, on the macro level, you might say, the global macro level,
right.
The Khomeinists and the Muslim Brotherhood are very closely affiliated. And this goes back years. It's not just more recently that there are overtures between Iran and Egypt, but you take the supreme leader Ali Khamenei of Iran today. I don't know how many people know this, but he translated a couple of the works of Syed Qutb, senior Muslim Brotherhood theoretician, translated those works into Farsi.
Oh, okay.
The relationships go way back.
Well, let me ask both of you guys, because you're kind of experts on this. Is this all because really in Islam there is no nation anyway? There is just
The church is the state. Yeah, the Quran is the state.
That's it. I mean,
you're
borders
talking
today
about,
of Syria don't really matter. Borders today of this country, I mean, they're kind of a means to an end towards achieving the ultimate Islamic goal, which is what?
The Grand Duma.
It's the goal of the Muslim Brotherhood and of Al Qaeda and every other jihadist group out there to reinstate the caliphate and impose Sharia, Islamic law. The caliphate, of course, the empire of Islam. And there have been various caliphates through the ages. Some were larger, some were smaller, some fought against one another, all of the above. But essentially what we get to is at the macro level within Islam, there is something called the Dar al-Islam, meaning house of Islam, and the Dar al-Harb, meaning the house of the enemy or the house of war. And these two are diametrically opposed. Dar al-Islam, all those places ruled by Islamic law. Dar al-Harb, all those places not ruled by Islamic law. And they are in conflict until the entire what have you got, your kutub there, Mark?
Yeah, I'm sitting there pointing. I'm pointing to the right here.
And so, they're in conflict until all of the Dar al-Harb is subordinated to the Dar al-Islam. And this is why jihad is such an important concept in Islam. It's not one of the 5 pillars because it's not eternal. It's only until the Dar al-Harb is subsumed into the Dar al-Islam. But until that point in time, every Muslim, everywhere, for all time, until the objective be achieved, is obligated to jihad.
Do all Muslims know this?
Jihad is warfare to spread Islam.
All Muslim leaders know this.
Do all Muslims know this?
No, they don't. I mean, many Muslims probably either don't know it or don't care to know it. There are loads and loads of Muslims who want no part of it. They do know it and they reject it. And they say, I'm not doing anything like that.
Well,
that's not who I am.
But what does that mean when there's a Muslim who says, I want to be a Muslim, but I just want to leave the jihad out of it? I mean, what are you left with if you take the jihad out of it? Because that's kind of what gets you to achieving the ultimate goal and purpose of Islam.
It is the essence of Islam, but I'll tell you what.
So what are you left with?
However many of those faithful Muslims who reject jihad there are, I'd like to clone them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you get a million Zudi Jassers out there, and we might have actually something to...
well, I'm just kind of wondering, do they have a vision, an idea of what that looks like that other people
Muslims,
could follow?
They're Muslims in name only, and it's just an airy-fairy.
They're Minos?
Minos is what they are.
Most people in this world really don't follow the doctrine of whatever their belief system is. They're concentrated on their own, immediate individual lives, their families, their jobs. They don't pay attention to this stuff. But unfortunately, for those who do, those Muslims who do follow jihad and do ascribe and to Sharia and support it and seek to establish it, those are the ones that we have to focus on because 100% of them say they follow jihad and Sharia and want to either kill or suborn us. So those are the ones that we got to, focus on in terms of that's the enemy threat doctrine coming at us. Whether they're right or wrong about Islam, that's not for anybody who's not a Muslim to say.
Right.
But the point is, that's what they say, and that's what they believe. And so that's the enemy threat doctrine we have to align to.
And they are the ones who are in power and close to our people in positions of power in the United States and abroad. They're the ones who have the money and the ways and means to do it.
Okay, so I'm asking, if somebody is advocating for jihad, I mean, even Hillary Clinton said the jihadist threat is on the rise. I mean, everybody agrees that jihad is not a good thing, right?
Well, I mean, except for the, hundreds of millions who do think it's a good thing. But aside from them,
the jihadis and their and their absolute supporters themselves. So if you have the president of a country who advocates for jihad, and you're not part of the jihad, then why would you arm that person? Why would you arm that country? Why would you call that country an ally?
As a senior, serving member of the United States national security establishment and the U.S. government, you who have taken that oath of service, And what does the oath say? It says, you know, you swear to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
From all enemies, foreign and domestic.
After taking such an oath as that, you not only have the obligation to uphold the Constitution, you have the obligation to know who the enemies of the Constitution are,
Right.
and to take steps within your professional competency to fight and oppose those enemies of the Constitution. And if you do not do that, you have failed in your professional responsibility, and you have abrogated essentially your oath to the Constitution. Now, why would anyone in the United States government do that? Well, negligence, willful blindness, more dedication to career climbing than to their oath of office. Take your pick.
Yep.
Speaking of which, you know what else I noticed was pretty much absent from the hearings? She didn't really talk about Petraeus.
Yeah.
And actually, I haven't heard anything about him in quite some time anyway. I don't know where he is. Maybe he's on administrative leave with everybody else. Maybe he's with those survivors from the Benghazi attack who nobody has heard from in 4 months. Like, he disappeared. He's gone.
Well,
Nobody's talking about him.
I think maybe mercifully so for all involved. Huh?
Yeah,
Including
true.
us.
I have a question as far as Hillary as Secretary of State, and as far as outside the region of the Middle East. And part of the Secretary of State job is to have, you know, good relations with Mexico. Now, has any type of jihadist activity been surfacing in Mexico as far as guns and weapons and things like that? I mean, have they?
Good point, Mark.
Have they been? I mean, because that stuff's all over there. I'm talking about. Let's bring it home, okay? Let's bring the Secretary of State job back home to the Mexico.
But she's been away. She's been logging those frequent flyer miles.
So is there anything
Mexico's
been happening? You know, coming from South America up to Mexico, anything like that been happening, Claire?
Yeah, really very good question there, Mark. The infiltration of the Western Hemisphere by the forces of Islamic Jihad is well along. In particular, it is Iran that is sponsoring the infiltration through South America and Hezbollah. Iran has, since 2005, opened many new diplomatic facilities. There are now at least 10 of them across Latin America. There are as many as 17 or more, is the number I've seen, Islamic cultural centers opened by Iran in the same period of time since 2005. 2005, by the way, marks what? It marks the beginning of the presidency of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who ends his second term as president of Iran this year. There will be new elections, and according to their constitution, just like ours, their president may serve 2 4-year terms. He's done with that. He's out. He's finished. But during his term as president, 2 terms as president, Iran has greatly expanded its footprint, if you will, in South America, Latin America, and all the way on up into Mexico, and certainly also across the border. Any place that Iran establishes a diplomatic facility, it provides cover slots for its IRGC, remember, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Quds Force, and Intelligence Service, MOIS, Ministry of Intelligence and Security.
Too bad they don't have a television station that they could sell to somebody in the United States and just bring over a bunch of journalists.
Well, you know, the one, you know, Hezbollah satellite TV station called Al-Manar is banned from the United States.
Exactly, yeah.
But on the Sunni side of things, the Muslim Brotherhood...
Sunny side of the street.
The Muslim Brotherhood network, satellite network, TV network, Al Jazeera, is finding a foothold.
Oh, I got a real quick question on the Mexico thing, because I just want to bring up a couple, because a couple of things have been floating around out there, and it's starting to make some sense. Because I don't know that drug lords in Mexico actually chop people's heads off, you know, as far as, you know, just tip. No, I'm talking.
Well, they didn't used to. but they do now.
Well,
Yeah.
now
They also have some very sophisticated VBIEDs, vehicle-borne improvised explosive device car bombs.
Yeah, and, to me,
Tunnels, too.
and I'm hearing all this, and I said, "What? This is really sounding really Islamic in nature, because they're chopping off people's heads, very Islamic fascists. They're building these IEDs and really acting very. Is there any infiltration, a war between the drug lords and Hezbollah, control over drug?
Cooperation.
Yeah.
Hezbollah is all over Latin America, as we've said.
Mm-hmm.
The mission of the Quds Force we talked about, right, is specifically liaison to terror organizations. The Iranian Quds Force job is liaison with Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah, Taliban, Iraqi terror militias, and in Latin America, it is Hezbollah that's primarily expanding its networks. It's got cells all over the place. All of this is public information. You can find it in congressional testimony, for instance, by Ambassador Roger Noriega, a very knowledgeable source on these topics, and as well in various newspaper reporting as well. But yeah, Hezbollah and its cells are all over the place. They are hooking up with in particular, the narco traffickers of Latin America and the Mexican drug gangs.
Okay, now let me
for two things. One to run drugs and make money, because Iran's not quite so generous as it used to be, and number two, to use the already established channels of transportation and distribution of the drug,
the Coyote Highway
networks up on from Mexico through United States and to Canada, all the way to Canada, every bit as much in danger as the United States is.
And real quick on this question, Claire, could this Fast and Furious operation been an attempt to put guns into the hands of these various groups, or is that just a wild theory?
What it looks like is that the United States kind of chose winners and losers in the Mexican drug wars between the cartels. And a couple of the biggest of the cartels were the Zetas, Los Zetas,
okay,
who are former Mexican Special Forces guys, actually gone rogue, and they operate more in the eastern part of Mexico, northern Mexico. The other big one, Sinaloa cartel. Sinaloa cartel operating more in the western part of northern Mexico, and of course across the border they've got networks and distribution and operations all through North America, United States, and Canada. The United States apparently chose the Sinaloa cartel to in effect use to put down all the other cartels in a way.
All right.
And the guns from Fast and Furious were run to Sinaloa.
Oh, okay. And we have one last caller of the day. You want to bring him up?
You got
to be real quick, Eric. Eric, you got to be real quick on this question. We're running up on the end of the show.
Last call, last question of the day.
Last question of the day. Hey, a question for Ms. Lopez is there a theory that it's going to happen with this Muslim Brotherhood in the Obama administration? Is it going to happen within the next 4 years, or is it going to be a boiling frog syndrome, and it's going to take a lot longer before they decide to take over our country?
If you have seen open documents of the Muslim Brotherhood, there is a phased plan for taking over Western civilization. It is what they did in Egypt. They infiltrate, they establish parallel systems of, let's say, social services. They infiltrate academia, media, government, intelligence, etc. It takes a very, very long time, especially in a free and democratic society like ours that does still have a tradition of our, allegiance to our Constitution. But they infiltrate. That is the thing. They infiltrate, according to their own documents. They want to destroy the Western civilization from within and sabotage its miserable house by their hands, meaning our hands, meaning they suborn our own officials, and they're going to do it themselves.
And they sure won over Hillary Clinton, didn't they? They sure won over Hillary Clinton, and we're going to follow up on that tomorrow here on Trento Vision.
And
WNN 1470
and we've
AM.
answered the age-old question that we put out the feeler that has Hillary Clinton done anything positive in her 4 years as Secretary of State?
Well, we're going to give it another 21 hours for people to think about and ponder on this. And Claire, if you want to do some research and see if you can find something that America would actually consider a success by our Secretary of State, we would love to hear that. Thank you so much.
I could check into the reset button with Russia if you'd like.
Yeah, well, I think Ahmadinejad is going to do a Putin and maybe become the next prime minister and still stay in charge. But let's talk about that another time. All right.
Hey, Claire. Hey, I got one more last parting gift.
Oh, we got a parting gift.
Bye. A little video parting gift for you. There you go.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock here on Trento Vision.
Thanks a lot, Claire.
Sure. Anytime.
Thanks for tuning in to Trento Vision, where bad ideas get pulverized and